Hello, this is Nick from Breaker Press Games, and today I want to talk about tips for running games at conventions. Alright, so I just got back from Midwinter Gaming Convention and had a fantastic time running a bunch of games, and I want to talk about the things that I feel make me kind of successful at it. Before we get into it, if you like these videos, please like, subscribe, and watch these videos all the way till the end. It is a very important thing for the YouTube algorithms and is a huge help. We're almost to 500 subscribers. We're in the low 400s, and I would love to get to 500 sometime soon. Additionally, if you'd like to support Breaker Press Games by making a purchase, you can go to the Breaker Press web store, pick up one of our zines or adventures. Currently, the Protectorate of Genulane is available for pre-order. It should go to print this coming week. Yes, additionally, you can support further by becoming a member of the Breaker Press Patreon. The Breaker Press Patreon focuses on my Stennard Grimdark DCC content. There's all sorts of cool stuff. Every month I send out something to my patrons. Usually it'll be some sort of encounter in pamphlet form, like the Bag Bearer here, or it'll be a class guide like the Balladeer, as I build out elements of the Stennard setting. Additionally, excuse me, I'm still getting over a cold sickness thing. Additionally, you can become a patron for free, and you'll still get access to all of the work in progress content that I am working on for the various Kickstarters that I have funded or are in the process of funding. So it is a fantastic way to keep abreast of everything Breaker Press. So with all that said, let's get into tips for running games at conventions. First and foremost, I think the most important thing is knowing your adventure. The adventure that you run, personally, I don't like to go in with something that I've never run before. I want something that I have run one or more times, so that I feel, close to it. I'm intimate with it. It is something where I know how the different encounters run. I don't necessarily have to know every encounter in detail because, occasionally they're going to go off the track and do something different. But at the same time, you want to be familiar enough with the material so that you know what's going to happen next in most circumstances. It is going to ensure that your adventure runs smoothly, and that there's not these long pauses where people are wondering what's going on as you're flipping back and forth through pages and trying to figure out what is going on. So yeah, it is going to give you the best impression for your new group of people, your fresh group of people, by having something that you are familiar with. So, number 2, show up with pre-gens, maps, and handouts. Those things also contribute to how smooth things are going to run. Most people at conventions will run with full pre-gens. They'll use the Purple Sorcerer app for Dungeon Crawl Classics, for example, in order to roll up their characters. Personally, I use partial pre-gens. What I do is I just do if you ever see the Stennard Character Creation Guide, the first, actually technically pages 3 and 4 are rolling your abilities, getting your ability stat modifiers, calculating your saves, and then rolling your birth augur. And so I do that information, and then I have my players roll the remainder of the stuff for their characters, their additional items, their occupation, etc., so that they feel a connection to the character instead of just being handed a pre-gen sheet. But that is how I do it. But pre-gens are very helpful. Having your maps already drawn instead of getting out the dry erase pen or wet erase pen and drawing out the maps while the game is going, that slows things down, and that's when people are going to go for their phones or wander away, go for a walk to stretch their legs. If you want to keep things moving, have your stuff ready. So, number 3, speaking of being ready, keep your tables handy. If you run Dungeon Crawl Classics, there are lots of tables for fumbles, criticals, etc. There have been plenty of times that I have run adventures where This book has not been needed because nobody rolled a 1 or a 20, but this is super handy to have for those moments that you do. In fact, I have seen multiple people that have actually put little post-its or whatever so that they know exactly where the fumble page, etc. is. Yes, this book is a patron send. I'd say a godsend, but this is DCC. It's a patron send. So yeah, have these types of things handy. I also personally, because I use a lot of Stennard content, I will often have Around the Common Fire, which is a pamphlet of NPCs. I'll have the Stennard Courier, so that, or the Stennard Character Creation Guide, so that I have access to a bunch of Stennardite names, so I can roll up a name on the fly, whether it's for giving a person a hireling or whatever, or if their character dies and I just want to get them back in the game as fast as possible. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But these are the things that I like to have at my table and in front of me. So, like with how I am talking excitedly, I like to keep the energy up. Personally, I stand, I pace, I gesticulate, and I point. These are things that I do to keep people engaged, because when you are sitting, you're talking quietly, and you know the tone is very level and sedate. There's not sharp crescendos and dramatic moments. You're going to, once again, you're going to have people that you know, they're going to be more distracted. They're going to be more likely to be checking their phones because they're wondering what's going on at home. But if you're being all kind of wild and crazy, then they're going to be like, what is going on? What is this bald man doing? Or bearded person, or whoever you are. You know, these are things that keep the focus on you. You become the focal point. And it's not that you're trying to be, you know, the star of the show. It's just that you want to keep people's attention engaged, and that is a way to do it. Now, this is not for everyone. Everybody isn't as dramatic and wild as I am. I come from a hardcore punk background where I was a vocalist, and I get into a situation where I'm in front of people and I want to kick over the mic stand and I want to flip onto the crowd. That isn't necessarily you. You need to do what's right for you. This is just the ways that I make sure to engage my crowd and my people and make sure that their attention is in the game. All right, I'm going to flip my notes over. What do we got next? All right. Set your table size for as many folks as you can handle comfortably. Now, I like to have a big crowd. I like to have 6 to 8 people at my table. If I set up a game for 6 to 8 people and, you know, only 5 show up, hey, I still got a fantastic group. I also, as a person who creates content that, you know, I want people to experience and tell their friends about and ultimately purchase, I want to have as many eyeballs on my stuff as possible. So I want to be able to facilitate a big crowd. But facilitating a big crowd is tricky. So if you don't have experience with that, you should start building up if you can. If you're the type of person that you're like, I'm normally used to running 3, 4, maybe 5 people, and the idea of going bigger than that seems like it's going to become slow and bogged down and you're scared of it, that's totally understandable. Start working on your skills and start adding more people on, and so that you get comfortable and used to having more and more people at your table. Now, this advice is specific to DCC, Shadow Dark, and games that are more light when it comes to the rules. Ultimately, certain systems like 5e, where you have an action economy where people have a bunch of different actions that they're going to be able to do during their phase, the game will bog down. This is specific to more rules light OSR type games like DCC, Shadow Dark, etc. You know, once again, this is, you need to do what you are comfortable with and what you think you can handle. But once you feel comfortable and that you feel that you can handle it, test yourself, push it a little further. That's how I approach it. Now, it should be said that if you bite off more than you can chew in a con setting, it can hurt you more than help you, because you're going to have these people that are new to you and new to whatever it is that you're running, and if your game grinds, it's going to sour their impression of it. So know your limits and test these things out with your home group. If your home group, you're used to running, 3 or 4 people, add a 5th. See how it goes. Get used to it. And then bring that to the convention setting. Now, this is important whether you've got 3 people or you've got 8 people. You need to move that spotlight. And this is something that I harp on all the time. You'll notice that it comes up in a number of my running open table campaign videos. I'll link those over here. But it is important to keep that spotlight moving. This is something that, I like to put my players in initiative order right at the start of the game if I know that things are going to need to move quickly around the table. Or if I don't want to go straight to initiative, I will just move clockwise. And I will make sure that I talk to this person for 2 minutes, let them interact with Stennard or the environment or whatever's going on, and then I move to the next person, and I move to the next person, and I move to the next person, and I keep that moving around the table. This is so important, one, for keeping people engaged, but also it's about knowing that not only do you want to give people spotlight, but you also need to sometimes take it away. Because there are some people that when they get into the depths of role-playing their character, they are going to hog that spotlight, and they're not even going to know that they're doing it. They're just so excited to be playing in your game. So make sure that you are able to identify when this person has had their moment, and you pull that spotlight away and you move it to the next person. Okay. The other thing that I want to say, it's all about keeping your players' turns short and punchy so that everybody gets a turn and everybody feels engaged. Now, the next, what is this? Rule number 7, watch the clock. Now, I like to be mindful of where I'm at in the adventure and pacing. I know that at certain points, if I'm running the Precipice of Corruption, which is one of my own adventures, if I'm running that adventure, I know that I can spend the first 40 minutes in town. Then we want to get to the first encounter. The first encounter is going to take about 20 minutes. The next encounter is going to take about 10 minutes. The next encounter after that's going to take another 20 minutes. And then we get into the thick of it in the dungeon. And I know this pacing. This is something I've run this adventure 20 times. And so I know exactly how this is going to go. And I will have my phone out and I will be looking at that clock so that I know that I'm going to get to that boss fight in the last 40 minutes and it's going to end on time. Because that's the other thing, is that you need to be, one, prepared to move things along. So, for example, if I know that my players are kind of being more procedural and being kind of slow going through the dungeon, or they explore something that people normally don't explore, that is going to take time away from the boss fight. And so in order to make sure that that boss fight is as epic and climactic as it possibly can be, I will move it up. Like over the weekend at Midwinter, there is one of my favorite encounters, the Hall of Twisted Faces. They were behind schedule. And so the Hall of Twisted Faces was just a corridor. They got to the end of the corridor, and then they went into the Hall of Corruption and faced off against Gorsek the Lidless. This is a very important thing to understand so that you know when you are going to need to start wrapping things up. And it's important to know that because your players have other places to be. They either have a next game that they need to get to, people that they need to meet up with for food. It is disrespectful of people's time to run over. And that isn't to say that I've never run over. I accidentally scheduled Tragedy at Woodwitch Rise at Midwinter for 3 hours and forgot that I had, when I scheduled that game, there were encounters that had not been written yet. It was a play test, and now it's a 4-hour adventure. It's not a 3-hour adventure anymore. And so when the 3-hour mark was approaching, I was like, hey, does anybody have anywhere else they need to be? Because we're going to run over. Are people cool with that? And there was one guy that needed to step away because he had something else scheduled, and that's cool. But you need to be forthright about these things and never assume that people are going to just stick at your table because they got places to be. So be mindful of that. Watch the clock. And my 8th and final suggestion that I am going to make is thank your players. I think this is so important. It seems so basic. And then the other thing that I do as part of thanking my players is I want to reinforce those memories. And this is something that I've mentioned in other videos. I have them each highlight a favorite moment that somebody else at the table did. And this is important because it creates a bond between your players, because they are expected, in most cases, it is going to be a stranger that is the person that they are going to be highlighting, because somebody did something wild, like Michael from 2OG Games. In one of my games at Midwinter, he was running a canine, and the canine went running through a burning building in order to support his friends. This is the stuff that people at the end of the session, like, yeah, Michael's dog, Michael's dog, Michael's dog. And so the praise got heaped on Michael. You do want to encourage people to not necessarily heap all of their praise on one person. And so I make sure to make a couple of notes of things that I want to highlight. So if everything gets heaped on one person, I will highlight a couple of moments that other people did during the game, so that I can be like, yeah, and it was awesome when so-and-so did this, and it was awesome when so-and-so did that. And that reinforces those memories, reinforces those bonds, and people are going to be more likely to remember the game that they played with you. So those are my tips for running convention games. I hope that's helpful. If you'd like more content about conventions, please let me know in the comments. If you have any questions about different things that I do, I love to hear that stuff, and I love getting recommendations for other stuff that you think that I should talk about. So these were my 8 tips for running games at conventions. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you for supporting indie games and indie game designers, and I will talk to you all soon.